Winter is coming. You know, I caught this show over the weekend and they seem to say that a lot, and it made me think about doing this video, and I can't remember what the show is called. But anyway, I'm Michael Howie, the host of the Defender Radio podcast and the director of digital contents at the Fur Bears. And we're already hearing a lot about fur, even though it's only mid-August. So we're putting together these 5 quick tips to help you talk about the fur industry as we do get closer to winter. Number 1. Traps are real. Leg hold traps, conibear traps, and snare traps are very real and used right across Canada. These horrible devices hold animals against their will until a trapper comes to kill them, or are supposed to kill an animal on their own relatively quickly. The problem is it doesn't work that way. Animals fight for their life for every minute they're in these traps and cause themselves horrific injuries. There is no way these traps can be humane, and if you do hear about a humane trap, chances are it's in reference to a trade agreement, the Agreement on International Humane Trapping Standards, and that does not involve any scientific consensus or ethics committees. So please visit thefurbears.com to learn more about that. Number 2. Fur farms are terrifying. Every now and then, the fur industry will have a single farm clean up its act a bit. They'll send in a film crew with good lighting and a good director, and they'll make it out to be a nice little farm. The reality is much, much different. Thousands, if not tens of thousands of animals are kept in tiny wire-bottom cages, no more than 2 sheets of paper put together. They have no access to running water, even though they may be semi-aquatic animals. They are forced to live in close confinement with each other, even though they may not want to. They are killed by the time they're 1, unless they're kept for breeding stock, in which case they are kept in these tiny cages for the remainder of their lives. Eventually, they are killed by gassing or anal electrocution in the case of foxes, skinned, their pelts sold to the auction house, and their carcasses disposed of. Number 3. There is no requirement to label fur in Canada. This is something that came up a lot during the discussion on Bill C-246, or the Modernizing Animal Protections Act. The reality is there is one line in the Textile Labeling Act that requires any fur removed from the skin to be labeled, but that's not how most fur is sold. It's attached to the skin and sold as some kind of a trinket or a trim on a jacket. A lot more on that is going to be coming soon, but please be aware right now there is no need for any fur to be labeled, and that means stores may or may not be selling real fur and simply not know. Number 4. Fur isn't green, and it isn't the only option. The fur industry likes to say that their product is decomposable over time and therefore green. The problem is fur is covered in chemicals to keep it from decomposing. Also, the production of fur in mass quantities creates copious amounts of waste. You can check out thefurbears.com or makeforhistory.com and see some of the studies that extrapolate just how much a single mink will produce in terms of feces and urine in a year, and how that sometimes ends up in waterways or sinking into groundwater. It's terrifying. The fur industry also likes to say that the alternatives or faux furs are typically petroleum-based, and that's worse for the environment. Now, I'm not going to get into discussion as to whether or not petroleum-based products are good or bad, but if you are concerned about the environment, don't wear a faux fur trim. Problem solved. Number 5. You can make a difference. A lot of us get frustrated because we see so much of the fur trim and feel like we're not making a difference. But I can tell you we're seeing less fur than we have in the past. And you can also help that along, and you can help to make fur history by talking about it with a friend over coffee, or with your family around the dinner table, or even with just a general person on the subway while you're waiting for the next stop. The reality is, fur is only being sold because there's a demand for it, and I truly believe that Canadians are inherently compassionate. When they learn the truth about the fur industry, they will turn their back on that horrific use of our animals. So please do talk with family, friends, neighbors, and strangers on the street politely, and help to make fur history.